I taught constitutional law for 10 years. I take the Constitution very seriously. The biggest problems that we're facing right now have to do with George Bush trying to bring more and more power into the executive branch and not go through Congress at all. And that's what I intend to reverse when I'm President of the United States of America.
Oh, sure he did. All right, that was Barack Obama in 2008. And joining us now, as promised, is Congressman Tom DeLay, former congressman, of course, and former House Majority Leader from the great state of Texas. Hello, Congressman.
How are you, Steve? It's great to hear you.
Thank you. Always great of you to join us. I really look forward to our chats. Okay, so, that's what the president said 4 years ago. I could go through every single time he said, the opposite now and what he's done and changing the laws. Again, today he was in Cambridge, Maryland, and he once again said that he wants to work with the Republicans in Congress, but he will not wait to take action if that doesn't happen. Illegal. Let's listen real quick to what Jonathan Turley had to say. Distinguished law professor, no Republican, no conservative. Here's 42.
Well, I'm afraid it's quite serious because the framers created a system that was designed to avoid one principal thing, that's the concentration of power in any one branch, because that balancing between these branches in this fixed orbit is what not only gives stability to our system, but it protects us against authoritarian power. It protects civil liberties from abuse. And what we've been seeing is the shift of gravity within that system in a very dangerous way that makes it unstable. And I think that's what the president is doing. I think that we've become a nation of enablers. We are turning a blind eye to a fundamental change in our system. I think many people will come to loathe that they remain silent during this period.
Agree with him?
Well, I don't know where Jonathan Turley has been for the last 130 years. That's what progressives are. That's who they are. Our system of government, the Constitution that creates a government that reflects the principles given to us in the Declaration of Independence, can only survive and can only carry us into the future if you have people that believe in those principles, believe in the Constitution, not teach it, but believe in it and believe in the worldview of the Constitution and protect the separation of powers. What we have now is a president that has accelerated the progressive movement that started back with Teddy Roosevelt and Woodrow Wilson, and he's, in his 5 years, have accelerated to such an extent that I now can tell you that we're living under a government of tyranny. I mean, when you have a president and that is cruel and unfair to the people of with using his powers and undermines the Constitution of the United States to create a presidency, a monarchy within the presidency, and ignores the Congress or the judicial branch, you have tyranny, or the judicial branch, you have tyranny. That's redistribution of wealth is tyranny. Taking private property is tyranny. The EPA just this last week took a whole town in Wyoming, Riverton, and gave it to the Indian reservation.
Yep.
10,000 people and their property, and gave it to the Indian reservation. I could go on and on of what we're living under right now, an evolution for the Constitution.
Well, what about the Republicans in the House and the people? What about the Republicans in the House and the people who are running for the Senate again in 2014? I mean, should they make this an issue? Because they certainly really have not.
Well, they have to, or we're going to lose. I tell people that the election that's coming up has already been set. If we had the election today, there would be an overwhelming tidal wave throwing these Democrats out of office, and it's set unless the Republicans. One of the things that disappoints me the most is the messaging coming out of the Republicans. They have a perfect opportunity now because the stark difference between the Obamanites and the rest of us is so graphically stark. All you have to do is talk about it, and the American people say, "Oh yeah, now I get it," and they'll throw these people out.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. We're talking to Tom DeLay here on the Steve Malzberg Show. What was your reaction when John Boehner went with the vote on the clean debt ceiling bill? You know, just about a week or so, or 10 days maybe maximum, after saying no, you know, we'll get something out of this.
Well, I was very disappointed, but I understand why he did it. Unfortunately, the Republicans over the last few years have become so fractured that that you can't get anything done. And when you give up before you even fight, when you surrender before you fight, this is what happens. Is you can't hold those people together and move them and lead them in a particular direction. So he didn't have the votes, but I was. What happened over in the Senate told me that they had the votes to get something, and I would, if they just put together a bill in the House, who has the power of the purse, that raises the debt ceiling a little bit, but has some sort of budget reform in it, something like we're going to eliminate entitlements as a mandatory spending. We're going to appropriate them from here on. That would have a huge impact on the ability to get a handle on this debt and the reason for raising the debt ceiling. You could pass that out of the House and get it over in the Senate and at least get the Harry Reid into a conference committee because he needed 60 votes and start negotiating and get something out of it.
Yeah.
But the American people, the people out here where I live, they just want to see you fight for what you believe in. Fight for it. Even if you lose, fight.
Yep. Well, Ted Cruz has that spirit, and some others do, but I fear that the Republicans are scared of their own shadow. Which brings us to health care and Obamacare. And there's a story out in the New York Times today, and it's not based on the government, because the government's not saying. They either don't know or they won't say, or both. But the New York Times, talking to insurance industry experts, say that 1/5 of those supposedly enrolled in Obamacare haven't paid their first premium, so therefore they're not enrolled. I mean, I don't know what kind of language allows you to sign up for something, not pay for it, and the government then says, hey, you're enrolled, but they're not enrolled. They have no insurance, whether or not they signed up. The disaster. People losing their oncologists, people losing their health care, kids can't go to their cancer hospitals. I mean, the horror stories are out there. Would it have been possible? Would it still be possible for the House to say, we're not going to fund some of this because look what's happening, and then bring out these people to tell their horror stories? That's one way to shut up the media, and one way to show the American public, that this is a tragedy.
Well, they're not going to do it this year, but hopefully we're going to elect people to move it on. But Steve, I am shocked that you would think that our government's going to lie to the people. That they're not going to tell you the truth as to the state of the economy.
Oh, that, yeah. Oh, you mean the signing up?
Obamacare. and that's where the Republicans, again, I just urge them and encourage them to quit talking about fixing it. Obamacare is unconstitutional. There is nothing in the Constitution that gives the federal government the authority to regulate health care insurance. And there's no reason for us to fix it. There's no reason to have it. If you need to fix it, then you can do it in the states and you can do it in local government. And I could argue there that they shouldn't be doing it there either. But the point is that you can't be fixed. We need to get through this election, and we need to elect people that understand, number one, the Constitution, number two, that the Obamacare is unconstitutional and it needs to be stripped out of the federal government, and it doesn't need to be fixed, and it doesn't need to be replaced.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. One more quick one. House Ways and Means Chairman Dave Camp, Republican from Michigan, made a... I mean, it shouldn't be that shocking, but what he said kind of was. He said that 100% of the tax-exempt groups that were flagged and targeted with an audit by the IRS, we're talking about audits here, were right-leaning groups. 100%. 100%. And, you know, and the president sits there with Bill O'Reilly and says, some guys in Cincinnati, there's not even an iota of I mean, here's another thing that I just don't think that the Republicans are taking advantage and making this a big enough deal. Bring forth these people, not before committees in Congress. Have press conferences with these people. Put them behind you, like Obama uses people for props and the Democrats use people for props. Let them tell their horror stories to the public.
Right, I totally agree, but I have to defend Dave Camp. At least Dave Camp told you this, and he's chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. So they are continuing to work, but you're working against people in the executive branch that don't believe in the law.
Yeah,
and they're not going to work with Congress. So getting the stuff, including getting people to testify, is extremely difficult.
Yeah.
But I have seen a lot of good hearings around there, and this all ties together. Let me just throw it out to you. It isn't just NSA and collecting our phone records or our email records. It is the executive branch has the same sort of database in the Department of Treasury called FinCEN. It has all our bank records. You have the new banking reform that was passed by Obama that created a big database that has all our credit card records, the Consumer Protection Board. You have now Obamacare that's going to have all our health records.
Yeah.
And you have the IRS that has all our tax records. The federal government has gotten so big, and this is what I can't seem to crack through the Republicans, is that they have every piece of information they have on you, and they've exhibited through the IRS that they'll use it against you.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not theory, it's happening.
Absolutely.
And we've got to stop it.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Good to hear you, sir. Thank you. Nice talking to you.
Thank you, Steve.
Tom DeLay, ladies and gentlemen, the former majority leader of the House, former Congressman from the great state of Texas, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. When we come back, Ron Christie, Republican strategist, will join us, weigh in on the conversation I just had with the Congressman. All that and more straight ahead. Andy McCarthy at the bottom of the hour, and Dr. Samadi this hour as well. What an hour on the Steve Malzberg Show on Newsmax Television.